Good evening. You're listening to the Xtreme Movie Show. I am your host, Rob. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV, we are covering Twin Peaks, the original TV show, perhaps the greatest TV show of all time, according to many, and definitely debatable there. We are on Season 1, Episode 2. I have with me Professor Pixel. Last week, Pixel, we talked about Episode 1, the pilot episode, which is about 2 episodes long. We talked about very key Lynchian elements to it. Some of the weird way that some of the shots were filmed, the fact that there's a crap ton of characters and names flying about, but it all comes down to the old small town mystique of not everybody is who you think they are, not everybody is as innocent as you think they may be, and it's all about who killed Laura Palmer, the homecoming queen, who within 5 minutes is washed up in a bag on a side of a ocean there where the guy was fishing, and they're looking at her and they found out she's had sex, she's had this and that, and it happened to a second girl, and we're only starting to unravel the mystery of what's going on here in Twin Peaks. So starting right off, I had mentioned before how it was just a great way to grab you in episode 1, the fact that you see this beautiful young woman, a homecoming queen, very nice, everybody loved her, everybody was dramatically hurt. There was not one person upset about Laura dying, or I should say happy that she is, or feeling that she had passed away. It was just that they were really struck by it. I think we have a different kind of way of introducing this second episode, because here we have Agent Cooper in his FBI home talking on this tape to Diane, and he's hanging upside down the entire time, dictating stuff, and it's kind of goofy, it's kind of silly, it kind of goes in the character of Agent Cooper there, but you know, I was like, yeah, whatever. But the scene that really sets it off to me is when he sits down and he has the damn fine cup of coffee and he has a coffee orgasm about it. Audrey's talking to him about some stuff and she is just totally pining over him really, really bad. And it's kind of fun in a flirty, sort of almost awkward sort of way, because she's the awkward one and he is not. What did you make of this opening scene?
Well, as I was watching it very carefully, because when Audrey's in a scene, you know that she has something going on in that head of hers.
Right.
We get a little information clarifying basically that she wasn't friends with with Laura. Sorry, that Laura was a tutor for her special needs older brother. I also marked down that I just think that she's happy to have a stranger in the town.
Well, it's like nobody sees her. So obviously she's enjoying the attention, but she doesn't seem like she's like I don't know, I wouldn't call her a spoiled child. That's not the vibe I got from her. Yeah, she did tell the Norwegians in the last episode about somebody dying and freaked everybody out. So this big deal didn't go down. We don't know what, if any, impact that'll have. But what kind of vibe do you get just as far as her character?
Yeah, you know, watching this episode actually gave more insight, because the last one I did get that spoiled rich girl vibe. Even with that one sympathy scene at the end where she's dealing with her mother, yelling at her about really the brother upstairs who wants Laura, and Laura's dead. But now I think there's something more going on. She definitely had something in the past, but that's in a scene later that we can clarify.
Yeah, she lacks the snootiness of what I would call that, spoiled rich girl syndrome, but she obviously does come from money, so we'll see. But obviously she's got her sights set on Cooper, which I think is kind of funny. But my whole point here is that's like a light way to start. Cooper ends up going to the FBI station, and they're eating donuts and they're talking about whatever, and they've got the plans for a day. So it's almost like a down to earth, almost like nothing happens. Or, hey, this is what we're going to do for the day. We're going to talk to this person. We're going to talk to these parents later, whatever. And they start off with the autopsy. And this is where what I think the show does extremely well. You get something like kind of a goofy opening. It's a little weird. I'm not going to say comical, but it's a little lighthearted for the show. But then they switch gears here in just a moment, because the doctor's going over the autopsy with Cooper and Truman. And what I like is they didn't show necessarily the photos of Laura. We see the picture of her head. It was a real famous one there too, laying in the body bag. But for her, when they describe how she died from a loss of blood, but not from a particular wound, but just from loss of blood in general, implying it was from all these different wounds she had on her. And at least 3 guys had been with her, pretty much that same day she died. Just him describing it kind of, just getting it out there and not laboring over it was just kind of creepy. And of course, Laura's music starts to play, and it's this really eerie keyboard thing before it gets into a piano piece. So that's one theme that I've noticed so far is that the music changes with what's going on there too. But the speculation that the doctor has is that the second young girl that in episode 1 that was found walking across the train tracks over on that he's suggesting that, oh, she must have been there too and seen it all, but she's still not responsive, so that's why she's in shock. So interesting, I think, way of kind of ratcheting up the tension here a little bit. What about you? What's your take?
Yeah, whenever he was going in, Dale was ready to get to business. It's like gangbusters in there, just going in. This is what we're going to do today. Be ready. And all the while, the sheriff is just eating his donut there, and he's like, okay, because I guess he doesn't want to speak with his mouth full.
Yeah.
But as for the autopsy, we learned that her time of death was between midnight and 4 a.m. I mean, that's not really a set time, but we'll get a little more information on that later if we believe a certain character. I noticed how the doctor was also like most of the town. This is horrible. Who'd do something like this? And it is a real question, I suppose. Who would do something like this? But I think this might be one of the few cases where it's actually just somebody who's crying over it and not really doesn't have something else, another layer to it, like other characters clearly seem to.
I think you're probably right. I mean, it seems like it was a throwaway line where he says something, or it was mentioned that, oh, hey, you gave birth to her, you brought her in here, and it's been a long time. So yeah, it's true. It's another emphasis of, hey, this is a small town. Everybody knows her. And yeah, she's a tutor, or was a tutor. So tutoring special needs kid, then you're in high school and you're the prom. I mean, that sounds like perfect on paper. It's another way of, like you say, just kind of emphasizing it. But yeah, he doesn't seem like he's going to be a big figure, so we'll probably leave it at that. But starting off goofy and then getting into this scene here where, okay, maybe he's amped up a little bit about stuff. There's a little cutaway because they're going back and forth between, interviewing people and other stuff that's going on here. And this is a scene that kind of really stuck out to me that we're going to talk about. So you get Shelley, whose husband is this really bad dude looking trucker guy, Leo. Looks like just a real scumbag. She's such a beautiful young woman. She doesn't seem like she's dumb. She doesn't seem like she's smart. She's just kind of like easy peasy, I guess. But to me, what was frightening about this scene was the stuff that wasn't said. We know that Leo's smart from the first episode where he saw that there was, more than when he did the whole ashtray thing with her, and he was intimidating her by not basically saying out point blank like a man typically would do, hey, I know something's going on. He just kind of was intimidating to her, and he just is doing that in this scene here because he's like, did you do my laundry? Did you do my boots? She goes to do the laundry. You can tell she's scared. She's ready to like piss her pants, and he's getting ready to go. She finds a shirt with blood on it, and she puts it off to the side, and then she leaves, and then he's getting ready to head out off his truck or whatever, and she's like, oh, geez, he's like, I can't find it. But then they cut back to Cooper and James having a conversation. So even though it's a quick kind of scene with Shelley and Leo, we know Shelley's fooling around. We don't know what's going on with Leo, but we got the vibe that he's a smart, bad dude. So again, very little screen time for Shelley and Leo, but enough where it's like, holy crap, a lot of stuff's really going on. You want to just go on into that? You want to skip the scene, or you want to add into it with James Hurley?
I just want to say I picked up the shirt too. They make it pretty clear, but it does raise a question of whose blood is on that shirt.
It's a lot of blood too.
Yes. And then yeah, I guess we should go through James because there's a bit of information that we get here, and this is who I mentioned earlier. If we believe them, we get a more we get a timetable that kind of fits. Because James, when he's being interviewed, he's shown the video, and it takes a minute, but he admits that he shot the video of the girls dancing. Dale knows that they were dating in secret, but James says that Laura wanted it secret and knew that she was using cocaine. And apparently, because of James, she had stopped for a good while. But something happened a few days before, and she started using again. And the last that James remembers seeing her, because she snuck out of her house about 9:30, met him. They were riding on the bike, and about midnight, she jumped off the bike and ran away. That was the last time that he said he saw her. And James is pretty believable. Out of all the characters, he seems to be honest, open.
Looks a little like Tom Brady. Since we're getting ready to have the Super Bowl here in a few weeks, but yeah, I think that's a good point because we don't know that he actually technically did the video. It seems like he did because that neat little scene with the bike showing up in Laura's eyes when they zoom in, and yeah, he admits it, but that doesn't mean he couldn't be lying because he obviously tells them, "Hey, I know about this half," but he lies about the other half to it, and I'll let you talk about the one scene that you mentioned that was pretty cool. But the thing that I found interesting about here is that so far he's had the most to say about Laura, but to your point, his story seems to be the most consistent about what's going on because we've heard him say it, off screen, to another character. So I'm like, okay, if we go with what he's saying, it makes sense and it really tightens up the narrative. So the one thing about the show is that this guy who wrote it was involved in wrote for Hill Street Blues, and that element of just constantly every scene you have to be moving forward, especially in a weekly detective show, definitely is present here. This just isn't soap opera stuff gushing with a bunch of characters and weird stuff. I mean, we are trying to find a killer. So I definitely think they make a very good use of what little time they have here in the scene. But you noticed something you wanted to talk about, you mentioned.
Yeah, there's a little scene that comes up. It's actually after we get a little interaction between Bobby and Mike. Apparently, they owed money to Leo.
The bad trucker dude, yeah.
Which adds a layer in the $10,000 that was in Laura's safety deposit box actually belonged to Leo. But right after this scene, we get to see the picnic again. And it's just the picnic. It's not in the police station. It's just us watching Laura dance around. It freezes on her face, zooms in a little, and you hear an eerie version of her voice saying, "Help me." And it's not anywhere in the world of Twin Peaks. So it raises the question of what they just throw this in there. And this show sometimes it has some oddities, I suppose, especially when it comes to Laura's mother, Sarah. But this sticks out because it's like it's talking directly to the audience.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, they can draw you in just with a line or two and then go out. Yeah, after that scene, it tells us a lot because, like I say, we can tell Laura's in some bad stuff. Obviously, somehow she came in the possession of this money and the account along with the smut stuff. So that's just going to get even deeper, it looks like, too. And obviously, Bobby and Mike are part of their little group and the biker group or whatever, and they're working somehow with Leo. Obviously, because Laura uses cocaine, it seems like cocaine's involved. So there's something bigger at play here. That's always kind of neat. But we get a scene now here where Cooper sees this guy, Ed Hurley, which happens to be the uncle of James. Mm-hmm. And he's the guy that's having an affair with the one lady that's working with Leo's wife. I'm thinking. I see the pictures in my head of what's going on, and so it's easier to describe it that way. But Ed seems like a pretty stand-up guy, even though he, like I say, is having an affair. That sounds hypocritical. His wife seems to be really shrill or whatever. So we don't know what's going on there or the nature of the relationship. But he's one of those kind of sincere, doesn't really say a lot of things there. He has a good relationship with Truman, and Truman knows that has got a side piece going on or whatever, and they know that that's his current relationship is probably coming to an end, but they're not freaking out about it. There's no real moral policing going on and all that too. But the interesting thing here is Ed talks to Truman, and he says, "Hey, this guy Jacques Renault, he thinks he drugged his beer when they were at the night before at the place where the fight broke out too, when James and Donna ran off." So there's that little bit of information. So we don't know anything about the Jacques guy, but one scene that makes this kind of interesting that I think emphasizes what was going on with Ed and whoever Jacques is going to be is that there's this little scene of Norma, Ed's wife, kind of walking and sees Nadine there. And it's weird because, Ed's wife, she's like this weirdo thing with drapes and yelling and screaming. I'm sure there's this little story about, yeah, the eye patch. Yeah. And she's talking about cotton balls, and you're like, what the hell? So we don't know if she's out of her gourd. We don't know if she's just hurt or upset. It's just kind of a weird thing. It's like emotionally, you don't know how to react to it,
It seems like that, like for a good minute there, that she's going to call out Norma because she's talking about, do you know what I did last night?
Yeah.
But I realized what I needed to make the machine work when I was there, and my husband was in the emergency room. She gets in close. Cotton balls. And she just walks away. That's pretty much it. It's really odd. And it leads to the question, how the hell did these two people end up together? Unless she wasn't always like that.
Yeah, it's just the side plot that I guess is somehow related here is that, Ed's there picking up James because Ed's is James' uncle. But they have like their own little gang thing going on, the Bookhouse Boys, whereas, Leo, I think, is the biker gang thing that Bobby and Mike are a part of. So we know there's like competing gangs, and there's stuff going on here with drugs or whatever, and whoever this guy Jacques is. So the guy that discovered Laura, this is where we kind of come off this high point a little bit, and it gets a little goofy. Pete, he's cleaning the fish. He's the guy that in the first 5 minutes found Laura's body. And you got Truman, and you've got the FBI guy going there, and they're just asking about Laura. They're talking to the woman who owns the mill, Josie, the Asian woman whose husband died and whose sister is Catherine, who's trying to underhandedly get this mill from her for the land or whatever. So there's all this crap going on too. And what's stupid about it, or not stupid about it, what I thought was actually pretty sharp because it's kind of silly, is that, they're having coffee, they're talking, she excuses herself because she had gotten a phone call. But then, right when she's excusing herself, Truman's like, he's just being kind of cool. I'm watching his reactions, but, Dale knows that he's having an affair. He's like, how long y'all been seeing each other? He's like, how do you know that? And he goes, body language. And if you go back and you look at the scene again, you're like, it's not a dead giveaway. I mean, there's eye contact and all that, like maybe interest, but it shows you how, despite goofy he is, talking about the Norwegian pines and the coffee and, this very young woman, flirting with him, that he's still all about this case. And so when Cooper's that way, it's like, oh, okay. And it's a chance for Harry to kind of go, hey, I'm not working with a buffoon. And we don't think that, Harry is, but we definitely know that Dale is not, which is one thing I do like here. Hey, he's a pro. He's brought him to do his job. We see him doing it. And, the thing is they talk a little bit about what's going on. It's, like with tutoring, it's revealed that Laura basically was helping her with her English lessons, helping Josie with it, because she's Asian. Joan Chen, she was somewhat popular at the time. I think people went, oh, that's Joan Chen. It's like, okay. But she seems polite. She seems not like an evil woman. Josie doesn't, or whatever. She seems kind of like wanting to do the right thing and should shut the mill down. And Catherine had berated her last episode about how much money it cost them, or this episode, whatever. But the funny thing is Pete comes in to end the scene because he starts the scene and he's ending it. This is real good writing, where he's like, "Don't drink the coffee. There's a fish in the percolator," and you're like, "It's stupid, it's dumb, and it's an accident." But it's like it's one of those little things that gets thrown in that I guess is funny, and in a way it kind of is, because I don't think Pete's an idiot, right? I mean, it seems natural, but it's just off-putting enough to kind of keep you off balance, where you're going, okay, how the hell am I supposed to respond? Maybe I don't know how I was supposed to respond with Nadine, but here's something else I don't know, and I'm just going to laugh, but I don't know. I thought it was pretty neat.
No, it was
It's a very famous line at the time.
Don't drink the coffee. There was a fish in the percolator. Yeah, I remember. I didn't even list it down, but it's a scene that was truly just light on top of that. But there's a line in there that's very important. So the last time that Josie saw Laura, they saw each other about twice a week. The last time that she saw her, she noted that Laura wasn't feeling right. There was something off. And one of the last things that she said to her that she remembers is, and the line Josie says, it just sticks in her mind. I think I understand how you feel about your husband's death. That's what Laura said to Josie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what to make of that. We're obviously missing some information, but you got to keep the mystery. So I'm hoping that we get answers for that soon. There's another part that's important, because right after Dale, it shows the other side, which is Catherine.
Yep.
And Catherine is, I don't remember the guy's name.
Ben.
Ben.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's Audrey's father.
That's Audrey's father. Oh.
Yeah, he's having an affair.
Okay, so
they're having relations, or actually they just got done and they're getting ready to have round 2.
Yeah, right after he got dressed and everything. but when it's lit, it's lit. Speaking of lit, they have a plan to set the mill on fire, and that because they want Josie to lose the land. They want her claim.
They want the land underneath it because they were trying to develop it, and that's why they were trying to sell it to the Norwegians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so during that entire scene where they're while pretty much flirting with each other, they set up the plan to set the mill on fire, and that's pretty much how it ends.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much more to say to that other than it's expanding on that plot line too. You know, how it ties into Laura at this point, if any, I don't know. I'm going to assume it's all magically related, but that's one of the joys about this show, is that with all these different scenes, is something I'll mention here in a few minutes as we finish it up. But I'll come back to the scene to talk about that. We see a scene here next where Donna's going to talk to Laura's mom, and you can tell that they get along well. Donna, they both miss Laura or whatever like that. And what's important about this scene here too, and what kind of got me over, is it seemed like it would be a great scene to end on, but it's not a bad scene to end on. But they kind of hug. Donna's sitting there holding Sarah's hand, her mom, and then when they from their embrace, when they break apart or whatever like that, when Laura's mom looks up, she sees Laura in place of her and screams really crazy. But then, they cut back to her, and instead of seeing Laura, she sees this guy with this really long, thin gray hair, like looking up at her or something. And it's just disgusting. And obviously she's traumatized. And so she's seeing stuff. We don't know why, but it's very unsettling.
It's slightly different because she doesn't scream because she's Laura. She is overjoyed. She's like, Laura, oh, honey, you're alive. Oh, and hugs her. And Donna's like, what the hell? And as they're hugging, she does see that man with long hair. She's screaming and she pushes Donna away. And she's calling for Leland, her husband. She's like, Leland, get in here. And as she's hugging, she keeps looking over as if she's expecting to see him again. And we don't know if she still sees him, but he was rather freaky looking. Didn't expect that.
Well, there's a real quick scene right after this that even throws me off because this is a bit of a disturbing scene. It stood out. But to me, this next scene stood out even more because it wasn't so on the surface disturbing. And it's the Blasky, the second girl that they fall run at. Her parents are there, and there's actually a third guy that works with this department here. There's Truman.
The Native American.
The Native Hawk is his name. Yeah, so he's talking to them. So it's like, oh yeah, I forget that there's this other guy here because there's hardly any scenes talk, and he's talking to them or whatever. But as he's walking around, he sees this one-armed man, but starts to follow him because he just looks suspicious. But we don't know what's going on. And the joke to me is, I was a huge fan of the Fugitive TV show growing up. It was one of my parents' very favorite shows. And so I was firmly aware of it and had been watching it, had not gone through all 5-6 seasons, whatever it was at the time, with David Jansen as the Fugitive, a Quinn Martin production. It means nothing to you. But that was the whole joke about the one-armed man, because in television world, the season finale or the entire finale of the entire show for the Fugitive is the fact that the one-armed man actually gets caught. And so he does, David Jansen, the Fugitive, Richard Kimball, does get exonerated after being chased. I mean, to me, that was just absolutely one of the best templates of any shows. And I've always talked about that, kind of the weekly thing. The Fugitive, Quinn Martin pretty much set that up. So I'm going, okay, is this just like an inside joke? Is this like the scene in the first episode when they're at the school and the kids moonwalking off to the side of the thing, and you're like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? To me, that's how I'm taking this, because it just doesn't seem to make sense there. But the guy did look sinister, and it was only there for a second, so I don't think it's really worth discussing. But
it's where he walks that's important.
Yeah, he's going to the morgue.
Yeah.
But then they cut away.
Yep, because the deputy, he's standing there a minute, looks at the sign, he's like, okay, and he walks away.
Well, Audrey's father, Ben, walks into his office. Audrey's in there kind of just goofing off, and he's like, hey, are you why the Norwegians left? And she's like, yeah, basically, or whatever. But you can tell Ben, he's just a real asshole, and he doesn't really like his daughter. He's got some sort of thing going on, some grudge, I guess. I don't know, but I think that's just to kind of reinforce that Ben's a jerk off.
Well, yeah,
but then we get a scene here that go ahead.
It also leads on to what we were saying earlier. There's something more going on with Audrey, because at the end of the scene, he looks at Audrey, who's facing away from him, and says, Laura died 2 days ago, but I lost you years ago. And there's something about that I don't understand it, clearly. I don't think, well, you might, but this is your second go around. But I don't understand that at all. So we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, it's been a very long time since I've seen it, so I'm seeing a lot that I don't recall on my first watch. And so to me, when I watched this was 30 years ago, but it was so good, I've always wanted to have an excuse to see it again. And I think here, the important point with Ben is that obviously he has some sort of relationship with Laura. We don't know what it is yet, whether it's on the up and up or not. He seems like the type of guy who's, an evil boss. So he's spinning a lot of plates, and doing that takes a lot of energy and attention. So obviously, Audrey's not getting it, and that's why she acts the way she acts. And despite her, obviously coming from money, that's why I say she doesn't give us spoiled vibe. That reinforced it to me. I don't know. This we see this guy, Bobby's father, Major Garland, and they're talking about stuff, and this might be a little offsetting for people today, because two things I'll say. I don't think it's a major point in the episode. Maybe in a future episode it might be, but we saw him talk briefly in episode 1, not too much, but he's a military guy, so he has standards. But Bobby goes to light up and a cigarette, and he just smacks him, and it's like, yeah, if you disrespected your parents back in the day, oh yeah, I'd get in the forehand, backhand. No, that was an issue. That wasn't abuse. That wasn't violence. That wasn't whatever. And to disrespect, lighting up in anybody's home or any sort of situation like that, or in front of an elder, yeah, that's totally was disrespectful. I know a lot of people today might go, oh, that seems like that's stupid, that's nonsense. Boy, I'm glad I didn't grow up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. But nobody really smokes like they do back then. Usually you would go outside and not smoke in a house if you were trying to be respectful of that. And I'm not saying that Bobby's being disrespectful, like he's intentionally trying to be a jerk, but it just seems like he just made a mistake because he didn't recognize, what was going on there too. But they don't seem like they're in a dysfunctional family, but it's just a little bit different because we've talked about how before Bobby seems like he's on the up and up here too. But his parents, or at least his father, seems pretty strict. What did you make of this?
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't mark anything down about the dinner in particular. Just watching the scene, clearly there's some tension there. The father's trying to talk to him, basically say, "Hey, you got to straighten up. You've been in jail for a day and a half." And I actually missed the slap. I thought he actually threw his cigarette into his mom's meal, and I thought that's why his father was doing it. I missed the slap entirely. Bad thing about note taking, you miss little things sometimes. But no, I don't disagree with the father, because Bobby's an asshole. We know Bobby's an asshole, and so with how he's acting, he has to straighten up his act, clearly, but we know he's not going to.
Well, we'll see how that develops, but it's another character getting introduced, at least in a minor way. Yeah, so pretty much the episode's finishing up with you're at the diner. Cooper, the agent Cooper, he's trying cherry pie. We see that the episode starts out with him really liking coffee so much. Well, here he's going ape shit over the cherry pie. But this is where we meet somebody that seems to be so goofy, and this is one thing that everybody always talked about back in the day, Log Lady. So it's kind of interesting too, because Log Lady says, hey, my log saw something that night that Laura was murdered or whatever. You're like, oh, they're just teasing us for the next episode or whatever. But the only other interesting point here too is that Norma, the person that works with Shelley, they're asking about the Meals on Wheels program. So you're like, damn it, Laura was such a good girl. She was, tutoring autistic kids. She was doing Meals on Wheels. She was teaching Josie, whatever. So we're seeing, every other scene that's discussed about Laura, a positive element and what we could think of as a negative one, because we know she was in some bad stuff. Outside of that, I think the more interesting scene here is the one immediately right after that, when Shelley gets home and bad trucker boy Leo, just in case you had any doubts about the relationship, he's like, where's my shirt? And starts wailing on her with some soap and a sock, the old school prison method. So it's safe to say that Leo's not a good guy, but that doesn't mean he's the killer.
Yeah, no. As soon as I saw him put the bar of soap in the sock, I was like, oh, this isn't going to go well.
You better run, Shelley.
Well, she brought home pie and everything. And that cherry pie, it'll kill you. That was a line from earlier that we skipped over. I don't know if it means anything. Maybe the pie will be poisoned at some point. We don't know. But he eats 3 pieces of that pie. That's insane. One sitting. In fact, Sheriff Truman looks at him and says, "You must have the metabolism of a honeybee." And we know Dale works out, so I guess it's got to be something mix of both. But you're right about the Meals on Wheels program. I marked that down because Dale wants a list of names of people that she would have seen regularly. And one thing that we don't talk about enough is how Dale just instantly writes people off. He's like, I know James didn't do it. No, Bobby didn't do it. And as he's letting these people go, there's actually a scene earlier that we didn't talk about, which was him letting Bobby and Mike go. He looks at them. Well, no, he doesn't look at them. He says, okay, you can go. If you got your story straight, okay. You're just telling the truth. Okay, you can go. And as they're walking out the door, he says, oh, boys, if anything happens to James, we're coming after you.
Mhm.
And this goofy FBI agent, sometimes he has those moments where he's I think the sheriff says earlier in the episode, I think I should I think I should get I should start studying to be a doctor because I feel a lot like Watson. Because Dale is that kind of sharp Sherlock kind of guy.
He does. And he's got a game plan and he wants to work it, but we're put off by his goofiness at times. And so that's what makes this sort of an interesting character. Yeah, I mean, the episode ends up with two scenes. Real quick here, it's just that James goes to the Donna's homes, meets the parents. They're having dinner. They're sitting on the couch like respectable young kids. I don't really make much of it. Bobby and Mike see that they're there and they recognize what's going on, so they're definitely watching them. But it cuts away to that weirdo, goofy ass psychiatrist, Dr. Jacoby, who was so eager to want to help them in episode 1, but we haven't really seen him since. But he's just chilling out. And he's got this weird, outfit on or something. He's listening to a tape because Laura would make tapes, cassette tapes, and talk and give them to the doctor apparently. And he starts losing it. He starts wailing or whatever like that. Turns out he has his coconut, and inside it, he's got the other half of the heart of the necklace. So he's got it. So the plot thickens even more.
Mm-hmm. Well, just one note about Donna introducing James to the parents. They're having dinner. It's a family of 4. Where's the sister? Now it could just be nothing.
Yeah,
it could be that she was away.
Before,
but at the table, they have 4 places set. What about the sister? They don't even explain it, which it feels weird to me. Something about that just feels off, and it could be nothing. I could be overanalyzing, but
I don't really think about it either. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. And Bobby and Mike pull up saying, "Oh, shame we only get to kill him once because he went after Laura. Now he's going after your boyfriend or girlfriend, boyfriend. That'd be a 2020 show."
Well, go ahead.
And then Jacoby is how it ends, and clearly something was going on as he's listening to the tape. He says, Laura says, "I can only take so much good," when she's talking about James, and she says she's so glad that she found Dr. Jacoby, which I guess I don't know. I guess the doctor was playing doctor a lot more than he let on.
Yeah.
Well,
my final thoughts would be for this episode 2, definitely jumps right back in. I'll let you know that there's a lot more going on. Of course, we get a lot of stuff about Laura confirming that she was good and bad. We get a few more characters introduced. We see some of them revealing of some of the side plots of what's going on with town, whether it's the mill or whether it's the drug deals and Leo being a bastard. Overall, really good episode 2. It picks right up where it left off. It feels like it's literally the next day, which I believe it is. And man, I can't wait to talk about the third one. Anything outstanding too you want to bring up here as we close up?
No, I think it was a solid episode. Overall, I'm really enjoying the show. Glad we decided to watch it because I've been looking for an excuse to watch it too, and this is given a perfect opportunity.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll talk about episode 3 there and put some more of these connections together. I think that's one of the interesting things too is that we're seeing not only little bits of information being posted, but we're trying to speculate and put them together, because the beauty so far, and this second episode proves it, is that definitely people know a lot about what's going on, and the unveiling of it is really the pleasure of it, not just the murder mystery, but how all these things may or may not tie together. And it seems like how it would be in real time. It's not like Columbo where we know who the murderer is, and the genius is trying to see how Columbo may or may not be able to unravel it. But yeah, Again, great music, great characters, definitely some dark scenes into it, a few light elements to it, but man, what a fantastic follow-up to the first episode. All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Season 1, Episode 2 of Twin Peaks, the original TV show, one of the best ever, in my opinion. Certainly hope that you're enjoying it, whether you've seen it or you've not seen it. You got any questions and all that, obviously drop us a line over here at the Xtreme Movie Show. We'll be glad to address them. Until then, I'd like to thank Professor Pixel for showing up tonight and going over everything. And check us out on the Xtreme Movie Show on YouTube, Daily Motion, BitChute, Rumble. We're all there. Just look up Xtreme Media. Or excuse me, Xtreme Movie Show. Yeah, for everything. Movies, TV shows, we got it all. We're primarily 80s based, but this is such a special show. Can't wait to talk about it. Till then, enjoy yourselves some cherry pie and a fine damn cup of coffee. Have a good night.